What's up, everybody? We are back with another $2 deck tech for 2DH, a format we created to have a new meta for Commander and to make the game more accessible to new players and players on a budget. Today I'm going to tell you about my Sidisi Brood Tyrant deck. Now, there's a lot of ways to build this deck. Some of them are more obvious than others. These are probably the three best colors in EDH. But what I like to do is take powerful generals and use them as an excuse to build something that I normally can't. Maybe not the optimal strategy. I really like playing aggro, but the problem with aggro in EDH is sometimes you dump your hand and you get that speed going and you're very threatening, and somebody just drops a board wipe or two, and it just kind of ruins your day, and then you're kind of sitting on your hands hoping to get back in the game. Now what adding black to an aggro deck can do is give you that recursion, so that you can get your value back out of your creatures in the graveyard. Having blue in the aggro deck is going to give you that card draw and make it a little bit easier to keep your engines going. I've tried to leverage both of those things just the right amount while still presenting this as an aggressive creature-based deck. There's about 35 creatures in the deck, and its goal is to be a creature-featured deck. There's a few really cute cards that go with Sidisi here. Wonder is one of them. It's one of the best ways to get Evasion in this deck, and it's pretty easy to get it in the yard because once Sidisi gets going and gets that engine going, it gives you a lot of cards in your graveyard and gives you some options with flashback spells and reanimation targets. Another great form of evasion is Champion of Lambbolt. You're putting a lot of creatures into play. When you swing with Sidisi, you oftentimes put another creature into play, which can buff this guy up just enough to eliminate one more blocker that your opponent has. This card, Kessage Cage Breakers, is really insane. So much value late in the game, can be a threat by itself with a full graveyard, and it has some nice synergy with Champion of Lambbolt and these overrun effects where you just get as many creatures in play as possible, and then you cast something like Overwhelming Stampede to make them all huge and give them trample, or you play Beastmaster Ascension and you swing with 7 guys in one turn and just surprise smash your opponent that's tapped out or has otherwise lowered their defenses. And finally, Thunderfoot Baloth is just another key card in the deck. All those 2/2 zombie creatures become 4/4s, have trample, and just suddenly, with this group of cards, any creature deck can become very threatening very quickly, and it's really a lot of fun. Sidisi is just a piece of the engine, and you really want to get her out on turn 3 or 4 whenever possible. The creature-based ramp is perfect for this deck. Elves of Deep Shadow is an all-star because it taps for black, so it can help you hit those 3 colors early. You got a couple more guys in here. There's a lot of 2-mana creatures, Coiling Oracle, Sakura Tribe Elder, and some other ramp spells that I'll show you in a second. At 3 mana, you've got Wood Elves and Somberwald Sage. This card is amazing in this deck. With 35 creatures, this is almost always tapping to do something. For 2 mana, we've got Thought Vessel to help when we draw too many cards. Farseek, Rampant Growth. We've also are running Kodama's Reach and Cultivate. I feel like they're just a must-have in a 3-color deck. This is a very mana-hungry deck. It has a lot of big threats and a lot of card advantage. So things like Fierce Empath to get any number of options, including Woodland Bellower, and vice versa, Bellower to get Fierce Empath to help get other things. Other card advantage we have is flashing in Notion Thief. We've got Mold Drifter, Prime Speaker Zagana. I mean, the blue in this deck is just enough to put it over the top. Playing aggro, you really don't want to run out of cards, and having these ETB effects on creatures that can also deal damage is really strong. For non-creature card draw, we've got Read the Bones. We've got great tutor here and Increasing Ambition with the flashback cost, and Treasure Cruise is an obvious include in a deck that is filling up the yard quickly. We've got some other enablers in addition to Sidisi here. Grizzly Savage and Satyr Wayfinder accomplish roughly the same thing. Fills up your yard, gets you that land drop that you need. We've got Stinkweed Imp that we can dredge if we already have some great cards in hand and we want to just get more in the yard. Factor Fiction Again, this will trigger Sidisi because of the way that this is worded. And then the Reanimation is just really powerful in 2DH. So Phyrexian Delver is one of the best cards. If you have the life to spend, you can reanimate Delver and then uses ETB to reanimate something else. Cadaver Imp's going to get a card back from your yard to your hand. Same thing with Green Warden of Murasa. And if you want to, when this dies, you can exile it, get something else. Soul of Innistrad is a really, really powerful card in this deck. When it's in the graveyard, it's 5 mana to get 3 creature cards back. So in the mid game, this deck can be really strong. Sometimes it has speed to overrun people early. I've had a turn 5 where I killed someone, a turn 6 where I've killed 2 people with Overwhelming Stampede, and this guy, Artisan of Kozilek, on the battlefield. But if it gets wrathed early or it gets controlled, it has all this recursion and all this grindy card advantage. It's a lot of fun. Artisan of Kozilek, it's not that hard to hard cast this in the deck. You saw the ramp package, but it's a great reanimation target. Annihilator 2 and a 10-9 body is what more do you want? Coming out of your graveyard for low mana. Mortuary Mire I put in the deck because it can guarantee that you're going to mill a zombie with Sidisi, or it can get a threat back that you actually want back in your hand from the yard. Victimize, just an obvious card for this deck. You get 2 big things back. All you have to do is sacrifice a zombie or something, or even a Cadaver Imp. Or I meant to say the Dredge guy. I forgot what it's called already. And then tons of reanimation spells here. Animate Dead, pretty obvious, include in almost every black deck, but they just printed this Ever After card, and this is so strong. 6 mana for 2 creature cards from the yard into play, past the turn. Let's see if your opponents can answer him again. You've got life death here. Usually we're just doing death, but if you want to be really cute and you got enough mana, you can cast life and then swing with your Beastmaster Ascension or your Overwhelming Stampede. Wake the Dead is a really insane card. If you've got a bunch of stuff in the yard with ETB effects, this is just a total blowout. You put a whole bunch of stuff into play, you block your opponent's creatures, and then you don't even care that they're back in the graveyard because you're just going to bring them back again with something else like Whip of Erebos. The lifelink is no joke in this deck. Oftentimes, you're presenting yourself as an early threat and people are going to be swinging at you and you lose a lot of life on the crackback. This can help just seal the deal and swing that advantage to you. Dread Return, one of the best reanimation spells in the deck because it has that flashback. Again, we've got a lot of creatures we don't mind sacrificing, Coiling Oracles, zombies, stuff like that. So having this in the yard and being able to camp on this for a while and use it at the right time is really strong. And I've got one more non-creature reanimation spell in here just because it's that good. It's instant speed reanimation. You can do this on your opponent's end step, then untap and swing at them with something big. And just, you want as much reanimation as you can with an engine deck like this. Unless Sidisi's countered, you're guaranteed to at least get a few creatures in your yard before she's killed the first time you cast her. So, all right, moving on. We are going to need a little bit of interaction. Yes, we're doing a lot. We're pressuring our opponents, but other people do stuff too. So some creature-based interaction here. We've got Trigon Predator to get rid of those pesky artifacts and enchantments. Reclamation Sage on the ETB. Shriekmaw can take out a powerful threat or utility creature. Shadowborn Demon. A lot of times there's no drawback on this, and you're just getting a 5-mana, 5/6 flyer that's also a removal spell. I mean, this card is bonkers in this deck and a great reanimation target. Evil Twin, it's the perfect clone for this deck. You can clone your opponent's thing, get value on your next turn, tap it to destroy it. Really powerful card. And I have always wanted to be on the giving end instead of the receiving end of a Bane of Progress. And this is the deck that I get to do it with because my love for enchantments had to get set aside, and this is a creature feature. This card is amazing. It is just devastating against the artifact and enchantment decks. People will oftentimes keep a hand because it has that sweet artifact or enchantment in it, and that Signet's going to fix their mana. And I mean, you can just like 10 for 1 your opponents with this thing in the mid game, and then later on do it again when you bring it back from the graveyard. And on top of all that, you're getting tempo because you're swinging at them with an 8/8 or a 10/10 or whatever this thing's going to be. Can't say enough about this card. I hate it when my opponents play it against my other decks, but I love it in this deck. And then a little bit of Counterspell just for protection. This is mostly for Wraths, or if you absolutely have to stop the game from ending because your opponent's going to combo. I really try to encourage people, just because you're playing blue doesn't mean you have to play 20 Counterspells. Yes, they're very powerful, but is that really what you're trying to do? Are you always trying to make a control deck? I tried to make this deck and my Edric deck and a couple others, Muzio, which you'll see soon, not run 20 Counterspells, but I do think you should put them in there for Wrath effects. It's very important to protect your winning position, and these cards do it. Forbid is the perfect card for this deck. It allows you a discard outlet. You oftentimes have more cards than you need in this deck, and not enough mana to use it all. So Forbid is just perfect. And then having another Delve card along with Treasure Cruise is pretty obvious. Murderous Cut is very often only 1 mana, and it's a great answer to any number of threats that your opponents are presenting. Okay, let's put the finishing touches. I need to show you a few more aggro cards and a couple more synergies here. So you've got Jared, Golgari Lichlord, and Splinter Fright. Splinter Fright's great because it helps fill up your graveyard down here, and it has Trample. Jared's great because it can just start throwing your creatures. If you're up against a Meekstone or a Sphere of Safety or some other effect that's stopping you from attacking every turn, Jared is just the answer you need. And it's great that you can just, in the late game, sacrifice a swamp and a forest, get them back in your hand, replay them. And these guys scale really well with the deck. They just keep getting bigger. Sepulchral Primordial, just one of the best cards in the format. Great reanimation target. It has Intimidate. I mean, can't say enough about this card. It's fantastic. Bane of Bela Ged. You saw the Somberwald Sage. You saw the ramp package. I can present this very early in the game, or it's something that I can reanimate and cheat back into play. It's also an amazing target for Whip of Erebos. I can't believe this card was an uncommon. I mean, this card's just insane. So jam this in any aggressive deck that runs green that you can afford to cast it, or any reanimation deck. You'll really like how it plays, especially with haste. I've got a couple haste enablers in here. Swiftfoot Boots, pretty obvious. Mogus's Marauder, though, not as many people are aware of this card. This is perfect for this deck where I'm reanimating things and then I can cast Mogus's Marauder, give both of those things haste and intimidate that turn, and just completely take a player out of the game. This card is really fantastic. I highly recommend trying it in any aggro deck that you're running. And finally, one of my favorites, Surrak the Hunt Caller, to give haste. It's really not that hard to have power 8 or greater, and adding another 5 damage to the swing is fantastic. Alright, I haven't talked too much about cheating things into play other than reanimation, but I've got a couple fantastic cards for any green deck that's running big creatures. Mosswart Bridge, most of you have probably seen, but See the Unwritten. This card is ultra powerful. If you have a power 4 creature already in play, you are more than likely going to get 2 creature cards into play from a creature deck. Sometimes it's going to have haste with Surrak, sometimes it's going to have an ETB effect, sometimes you're just tapping out, deploying threats, and hoping your opponents don't Wrath, or maybe the fact that this is only 6, you're holding up that Stubborn Denial and you're just going to get them when they try to Wrath. Super busted card. Temporal Trespass is how we are going to end the deck. Not a ton of blue in this deck. You can see I really try to stick to the creature theme, but I just can't pass up taking an extra turn for that cheap delve cost and just finishing off my opponents. So that is how I like to get aggressive in EDH, playing Recursion, playing card advantage spells, and playing a bunch of really cool synergy. One of my friends described this deck as just too easy. It really is, especially if you're a new player. I highly recommend playing some of this color combination. These are the most powerful cards in EDH. in 2DH, I should say, the powerful colors in EDH overall, I think most people would agree. So start here if you like to play aggro, you don't like control, but you're tired of running out of cards in your red deck or getting board wiped. Check out Sidisi. If you want to check out the entire deck list, it's linked below. We also have a Facebook group. We're local to Seattle. We play at Card Kingdom every Thursday. Thanks for checking it out, guys.